friends. This is Jesse Juarez, president of the Rotary Club of sunny Seaside, California. You're watching a presentation which was recorded live at one of our club meetings. Seaside Rotary meets twice a month via Zoom. Our meetings feature dynamic presentations by many of the movers and shakers that make Monterey County such a vibrant and hardworking community. If you'd like to join a meeting or learn more about Rotary and the work that we do, you can reach out to Seaside Rotary Club at gmail.com. Again, that's Seaside Rotary Club at gmail.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more dynamic content. There we go. And now I'd like to go ahead and give the floor to Mr. Steve McShane there to introduce our esteemed guest speaker.
Well, I'm just delighted to have with us, a true entrepreneur that's in the trenches, a young man that I've known, I can say more than half his life, that has a distinguished career in banking and ultimately pursued his passion in bread. His pretzels and his croissants have a cult following, as I think in the early days, it was like sold out. His capacity's grown and the market's grown. I know our speaker was in Monterey this last weekend, had great success. And, I think in Rotary, it's amazing to know the different people that have pursued a passion in one field or another. And to get connected to someone that's young, enterprising, and starting a business locally here is that inspiration we're looking for in our speaker today, and that's Otto Kramm. Otto has Otto's Bread Company. As I think was mentioned before we got started, he was up at 1:30 this morning getting his bread ready. Fresh bread is his specialty. So I've asked Otto to share his story and his challenges and his optimism for not only starting a business in a pandemic, really getting it off the ground and growing it, but being such a community-based business. You've grown your business in so many community ways. So with that, please help me in welcoming Otto Kramm with Otto's Bread Company.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Jesse, for having me here today. And appreciate all you guys showing up. And quite honestly, I'm humbled to be asked to speak and to share this story. As Steve said, he has known me for more than half my life. My mom used to work at his nursery there, and have known him ever since. And I've always appreciated the support that has been given. So Otto's Bread Company, it's an interesting story. I myself am a Spreckles native, grew up in Spreckles, was born in Salinas. I attended the elementary school there, went to Buena Vista, went to Salinas High, was a baseball player, the whole 9 yards. In true Salinas fashion, and Steve, you can attest to this as well, went down to Cal Poly, and I got my degree in finance. And all the while, really, I ate bread, but I was an athlete. I stuck mostly to meat and veggies and kind of shied away and fell into the stigma that bread is given today, which is that, if you want to lose weight, or if you want to stay fit, you got to stay away from the bread. And I adhered to that. Now, fast forward to graduating from Cal Poly, and it was 2016. And again, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. As I was growing up, as I said, I was a baseball player. It was always my dream to be a professional. And I've always been a passionate and dreaming young man. And I truly believed that I was going to become a professional. I know that sounds a little silly, but it was in my bones that that's what I thought I was going to be. And unfortunately, that dream fizzled out. I say unfortunately, but I guess looking back now, it's kind of bittersweet, because if it hadn't fizzled out, I wouldn't be where I am today. And while it might seem more romantic or more glorious to be a professional baseball player, I'm sitting here today, I'd probably say I would rather be where I'm at today. So anyways, with that dream gone, me graduating college, really didn't have a passion. I was kind of one of those people, which I think there are many of, that felt as though I didn't have any hobbies. I didn't really have any passionate interest of mine. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my career. As I said, I was a finance major, and it just kind of happened that because of my agricultural experience, along with the finance background, I landed at a great agricultural bank, American Ag Credit. And I was an intern there during the summer of 2016. I was in the Central Valley, and it was good. It was great. I mean, they're great people. They have a great operation. They do a lot of good work for not only the small farmers, but the larger farmers in our area and all along the United States. After that, I got a full-time gig with them as a credit analyst, and I was up in Santa Rosa. I moved from the Central Coast here and went up there. And that's when I started to learn how to make bread, because I was sitting in Santa Rosa. I didn't know anybody. Like I said, didn't have any hobbies. And a friend of mine that was down here, his name's Dominic Barsati, he was making bread. And I thought it was this weird little hobby. I thought it was funny. He was just, he'd make his little loaf of bread every week. And I'd say, oh, that's cute, little house on the prairie type of thing. And however, I went home one weekend to visit, and my dad had the book that Dominic had learned from. And it was just like, do you want to try this out? And it was kind of interesting. And I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And so I snagged a piece of the starter that my friend was using, took the book, and started to make bread. And it was pretty quick that I was like, this is something fun to do. It was on the weekends, and it was something that I could fill my time with. And it was something that I worked with my hands and created a beautiful product that people seem to enjoy. And I shared it with my community. I shared it with the apartment complex and shared it with my coworkers. And that continued for about a year up in Santa Rosa, just sharing bread, making it every weekend. Looking back on how I made bread back then, it's night and day. I was a true amateur back then, and I really wasn't producing loaves that were of the quality that I'm able to produce today. But I think it's important to just recognize that, hey, I started with 2 loaves up there, 2 kind of measly looking loaves that people still loved. And now just this morning, I was able to get out 45 and along with 55 pretzels. So it's that growth that is something to reminisce on, and just brings me a lot of happiness and pride. So anyways, I get out of Santa Rosa. I actually got a job down here in Salinas, and I moved back. And all along, I was thinking that from moving from Santa Rosa to Salinas, that would be a good opportunity to start a bread company, because while I was in Santa Rosa, I had recognized that there was a market for this type of bread, and that it was something that I truly wanted to pursue. I wrote a blog post upon me leaving the banking industry, wherein I detailed that one of the most vivid memories of mine from Santa Rosa is I would just pace around my little apartment, and I was talking to my mom, and I was just so amped up about, there's a market for this bread. There's a market for this bread. And she was always supportive. She always, entertained my dreams, and knew that I was always kind of a far reaching, ambitious young man. But it just never really seemed like it was something that you could do. I'd be up at 4 a.m, getting ready for the day's bake. I'd be researching, how do I get into a farmer's market? How do I get into, a cottage food operation, which is what my permitting is for today. But it just fizzled out. I got to Salinas, and suddenly my weekends were busy again. Up in Santa Rosa, they weren't so busy because I didn't know too many people, but being back home, I knew my friends and I had my family, and bread kind of lost its way with me. I would make bread periodically, maybe once or twice a month, but it certainly wasn't the every weekend type of thing that I was doing in Santa Rosa. And all the while, here I am, I'm a banker, and I'm doing my job. I liked working with the people that I was working with, but really I knew that it was not something that I wanted to do. I knew that something was off. And one of the things that I like to tell about that experience is that, you know, when I was in Santa Rosa and I was first working there, it felt like I was I was a horse that needed to be broke. I needed to get used to uh, sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day. I needed to get used to, and there's nothing wrong with this at all. Nothing wrong, but it just wasn't for me. And, you know, I needed to get used to that. I needed to get used to essentially spending the majority of my day doing something that I wasn't particularly happy to be doing. Uh, Now, does that mean that I wouldn't do a good job? Absolutely not, because that's something that I do pride myself on. And I was raised to always give my best effort, which is what I did. And I treated my customers well and did my best work as I could for the bank. But at the end of the day, what I focused on mainly was, this isn't really what I want to be doing, and I want to be making bread. So let's see where. So I'm in Salinas. Bread is kind of fizzled, but I'm still in this weird headspace where I'm not doing what I want to do, but I also am not. I'm also not doing what I want to do, and it's kind of getting buried until I ended up moving from Spreckles to out here in San Venancio, where I am today, and I live in a small granny unit behind my friend's house. He's got his wife, and their two young children. And that's when I started to make bread again. I started to make it more regularly, started to bring it into the office. It still wasn't the highest quality that I could get it to. And I was still extremely amateurish. And then I told myself in the fall of 2019, I said, okay, like every chance you get, because I had recognized that, you know, hey, I came to Salinas and the initial intention was, yeah, it's a good move for me in a banking career wise, but it's also, it was the priority was that it would be a good idea to get down here and start a bread business. And so I told myself in fall of 2019 that, hey, any chance you get, make bread. Any chance, you know, if you have a free weekend, you're making bread. And it was, it was going, and you can see it. You know, I have an Instagram account now that, it's funny because I started that account when I was in Santa Rosa, and it was kind of just a joke. You know, I would just post loaves of because I didn't want to put my personal feed and fill that with loaves of bread, so I made my own, and I would just post. It was bread and beer, and I would post pictures of the beer that I was drinking that day and the bread that I was making that day. And I had about 50 followers. It was just my buddies, my close friends, and we'd all kind of joke on it and stuff. And then, you know, fast forward to where I am today, and I'm creeping up to about 1,300 followers, and that's my primary account for conducting my business. So anyways, 2019, it's the fall. I'm going, and finally it was getting towards the end of the year in 2019, and I finally said, you know what, okay, are we going to try to ever sell this, or are we just going to keep giving it away? Are we going to see if there's truly a market to purchase this bread or not? And I made a commitment to myself that, hey, you know, start of 2020, that first weekend, that's gonna be the first time you put it out there. Because it was I was nervous. I you know, here I am. It's on, you know, I was putting out there on my personal profile, which I have a few more followers on my personal page than I did on my bread account. And I was actually, not only was I posting the creation that I was making, but I was also saying, are you interested in spending $10 to $15 in buying this? And sure enough, they were. But it was only 4 loaves. And I started with 4 loaves on January 5th, 2020. And I sold them for $15 because I rationed that it's a $10 loaf, $5 delivery fee, and whatever, the whole 9 yards. So me and my dog, we would get in the car together, and I'd go out on Sundays and I'd drop it off to my friends and family, whoever bought them. And it was fun. It was super fun. And that's where Otto's Bread Company came, the name came to me. I know it's not the most original name, but I had to think of a name on the fly just to say that, hey guys, you know, OBC is sold out. And I thought OBC had a nice ring to it. I thought it kind of just, you know, Otto's Bread Company just kind of rolled out. And that's really when the gears really started to turn, was that I was selling every weekend. It was okay. Every weekend it's 4 loaves, 4 loaves, 4 loaves. And then come March of 2020, as we all know, the pandemic hit and we started working from home. I had actually just recently returned from a trip with a good friend of mine from Japan. And we were like probably one of the last few flights out of Japan, because right when we left, I mean, they had shut down. And we get back, I'm working from home and I'm still doing this thing. I'm still doing it on the weekends. And finally, my buddy Dominic, he says, the one who originally got me into bread baking, he says, well, you're working from home. And at this point, I was working for Rabo Agrifinance. It's another outfit similar to American Ag Credit, but not obviously not affiliated with any means, but it's agricultural finance. Another great company that has, you know, great people and a great mission. And so I said, okay, yeah, you're right. You know, bread doesn't take that much time when you really think about it. So there's no reason why I can't be making bread on the weekdays while I'm working from home. And that's what I started to do. So it's always fun for me to think about, because I started that year making 4 loaves every weekend. And when you start making bread, when you first start, you open a book, one of the more basic, you know, one of the more popular bread books, and each recipe makes 2 loaves. So everybody starts with making 2, and then I moved to 4, and then all of a sudden, I moved to 8. And it's interesting because, and I think this is probably a lot of entrepreneurs can probably attest to this, is that each level, if you want to call that, brings about new challenges and new anxieties, and the process changes, and you're still making the same product, but the process is just different. And it's a lot more moving parts. There's a lot more dough on the table, and you just have to figure out how are you going to do this. And so I moved from 4, I moved to 8. And then all of a sudden, you know, things were moving a little bit better. I was refining my process, and I finally got the courage to post what I was doing on the San Benancio neighborhood forum on Facebook. I think we all are a part of one or another neighborhood forums. And I again, it was nerve-wracking. You know, it was the biggest audience that I had posted this or told people about was my personal Instagram, which was about 500 people, and they were my friends. And now I'm posting it out on strangers, and it's not only am I doing this, you know, putting myself out there, but if anybody's ever made sourdough before, they know that it truly is a craft. I mean, it's something that you do have to be confident in if you're going to be selling it to people, because very easily one misstep can lead to a completely flat loaf. It can lead to an inedible product. I mean, it's still edible, but you know, if I'm trying to produce, as my slogan says, premium artisan sourdough, I don't want to be selling frisbees to people. So I posted out on the Facebook page there, and sure enough, boom, I got 45, 50 orders. People are all about it. And it blew my mind, because I'm like, okay, wow. Like, you know, first of all, I've never made 40 loaves in my life during a week. The most I'd made in one day was 8. And so I had to go, I went 5 days in a row, 5 or 6 days in a row, making 8 loaves. And this is back before I had the equipment that I have today. And so again, if anybody has made sourdough before, the typical method for a home oven is a cast iron Dutch oven. So it's these big, heavy metal pots, and you use those to drop the raw dough into, and you put the lid on it, and you can fit 2 in a standard home oven. Now, since I was producing 8 in a day, that meant that if I was only going to use my home oven, I would have to do 4 turns. However, that takes too much time. It's 4+ hours of baking, because you have to account for the reheat period. And so not only was I baking doing 2 turns in my oven, but I was running back and forth between my granny unit and my landlord's house, because I was using their oven too. And so had my oven mitts were just about on fire, because I'd have to be carrying, and bread is baked in a very hot oven. It's 500-600 degrees. And so I'm sitting there trying to hustle and get 40 loaves out. And all the while, this whole thing is going through my head again. It's like, okay, 2 loaves, 4 loaves, 6 loaves, 8. And now we're doing 8 every day. And I'm also at the same time trying to manage a portfolio for the bank. And I was still able to get my job done and do the best that I could do, uh, sneakily, while sneakily building a small company. And excuse me there. Um, and so uh, here comes, I think it was April when I finally pulled the trigger on buying a new oven. And it's an oven that I had been looking at for probably about 2 years. It's called the Rofco B40, and it's a Belgium-made brick oven. Uh, but it was an expensive purchase, certainly the most expensive item I'd ever purchased, besides my vehicle, which was obviously financed. Um, but the oven came, or actually, I'm sorry, I purchased the oven, and that was a bit of a sacrifice because I did have to get rid of the home oven because I live in a small studio and there's not enough room for two ovens, let alone two 250-volt plugs, because this requires a 250-volt plug. Um, However, what that Rofco was going to do was allow me to bake a maximum capacity is 12 loaves. Uh, I run it at 9 loaves because you do get a more even bake on the loaves, but it was just a game changer for me. However, due to the sourdough craze that the pandemic started, Rofcos were back ordered for about 6 months. It took about 6 months for my oven, about 4 to 5 months for my oven to finally come in from Belgium. And in that time, I kind of told myself, okay, I'll keep it up. I kind of went dark on my bread Instagram account, which was how I was running the sales, and I was just making posts, and people would buy. But by this time, I had had enough people that were kind of routine that I was able to get by without posting so much. And just the feasibility with having to manage a portfolio as well as make bread. I wanted to do a good job on both fronts, and so I limited the production on the bread and told myself, hey, I'm going to use this time to really refine my process. That way, when the oven does come, I can be good at what I do, especially with the higher production. And I kept it up, going. And then August hit, the oven came, and it's, sure enough, the first bake that I did was in August, and that was when the fires, blanking on the name of the fire, but we all know the fires that happened out in Toro. That's when those hit, and I live in San Venancio. And so the first day that I baked out of the Rofco, I had to evacuate. And so I was stuck with this dilemma. It's a little bit of a funny story. It was like, okay, I just got this oven that I waited 5 months for and paid a pretty penny for. Am I going to bring the oven with me? It weighs about, I don't know, 200 plus pounds. And sure enough, we did. We evacuated the oven and we got out, and everybody was safe. And thankfully, our area was unaffected. So again, kind of just running through. We just kept going and going. And at this time, I was incorporating croissants to my operation. That's something that I've always been kind of romanticized about, with just a bread bakery that also specializes in sourdough croissants. And everything I make is sourdough, by the way. So it's no commercial yeast at all in any one of my products. It's all, we call it naturally leavened. So I'm still continuing down this road. It's fall, and I keep feeling this pressure. This pressure of wanting to really see what this whole bakery is about, because I obviously had discovered that there is a true market for this product. I was working through the logistics of expanding the operation. I was making money. However, I mean, it's, at the same time, it's, I wasn't managing my finances or keeping my books super tight, just because it was still just a hobby. But I had made a goal in Q3 that by the end of the year, I wanted to pay my rent with bread money. And it was just something that I wanted to see if I could do, just to see if it was something that I could generate some real income off of this. And sure enough, in December, that was the first month that I actually paid my rent with bread money. And I made sure to tell my landlord that. I mean, we're really good friends anyways, but it was just fun to say, like, hey, this was all money that I had made from bread. And at that time, there was a lot of turmoil, like a lot of turmoil with me in do I want to pursue this full time? I mean, I knew I did want to, but how do I make this plunge? You know, and I'm sorry if I'm a little scrambled here, because I do have a podcast actually where I do like to talk about um, deeper aspects of life and my own thoughts on everything. And my current topic that I want to do is a reflection on these past 3 months. And this is the first time I've really kind of, I've been reflecting on it, but I haven't spoken it. So I'm sorry if I'm a little scattered, because there's so many moving pieces and influential aspects that led to this decision. But for me, all along, ever since I started making bread, ever since I would say just who I am as a person, is I wanted to be who I am. I wanted to be myself. Every day I wanted to get up and I wanted to be Otto Kramm, who I knew that I could be. And over the course of these years in banking, I had discovered that the route and the path for me to be able to live an honest and free life was to pursue this bakery. I always wanted to have a balance of, I enjoy the business side of things. I enjoy the bakery. I love baking. But there's so many other aspects of life that I do enjoy as well. And I viewed an occupation and a bread business as a route to get that done. And that led to a lot of conflict into these later months in 2020, because the realization that this was possible was occurring. And I'm not one that really is for change. I have a hard time. I've always had a hard time with change. And this was going to be the biggest decision of my life, hands down. If I think when I tell people that I was a banker, I don't think a lot of people understand what it is that I really did do. It was a position that people view in the industry that could be a 40 plus year career. And it's a good job. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. And here I was thinking that I'm going to leave it all and still have a rent payment and still have a car to take care of and still have to live and be alive. It was a big decision, and it was all coming to a crux there in December, which was coincided with the first time I was able to pay my rent. And then, I was going around, I was asking people, I was saying, I know a few local business owners. And I was asking people, I was like, how do you know when to make this leap? And the vast majority of them told me that a lot of people told me that they were either fired or had, were laid off, not fired, laid off, whatever circumstances led to the loss of a job, and they found themselves without it. And they were like, okay, well, let's do it. And whatever your route is to entrepreneurship, that's your route, and that's something to be respected. But it was rare for me to find someone to say, I willingly quit to pursue this. And so I was talking to people, and I couldn't find someone to just tell me their story in that regards. And finally I woke up. It was January 4th and 2021 now. And I had just taken a week break because I had gone 51 straight weeks in 2020. And again, stop me if I'm talking to, because I could go on and on about this. So let me know. But I'm getting to 5
minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry, Steve.
That's
I'm sorry.
Right. You're doing great. This is good.
Thank you. And so I had taken a week off, and it was 51 weeks, and I wanted to take that 52nd week to just kind of reflect and be like, wow, like I did this. I was very proud of that. And something I'm very proud of is that all of this was, I go back into a few years ago, my youth, like maybe I was 18, 19 years old. And something I had always wanted was to build something from the ground up, and something that I could truly say that this was something that I did 100% myself. yeah, you have the support of your family and friends, but really it's just, hey, I support Otto just wandering off doing this bread thing and it makes him happy and cool. But it was nobody was pushing me, nobody was doing anything. And I took that last week to reflect upon that. And I had to ask myself, I said, what was the reason, what was all this for if you're just gonna, you know, basically walk away from it and continue the career as a banker? And there's nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong at all. But I had a hard time with it because I would look around my studio and I'd say, this is a little bakery that I built and I can't, I have to honor what I did. And so January 4th, I woke up and I just remember, I was texting my girlfriend, I was talking to her and I was like, I think I'm going to quit my job tomorrow. And my parents knew, everybody knew this was coming, but I don't think anybody knew that it was actually going to happen. And, I didn't consult with anybody beforehand other than my girlfriend, who's been 100% supportive, because I didn't want anybody to influence that decision. I wanted to make sure it was something that I did myself. And sure enough, on January 5th, which was 1 year to the day that I had first sold my first loaves, I always have a flair for the dramatic, but I walked up to my boss's house because we're in the pandemic and we're all working from home still. And I gave him my notice. And that's when the ball really started to roll. And so, anybody who knows banking or has been in banking, they know that when you do give your notice in that industry, it's a pretty quick boot, just due to the confidentiality of the business. So I was out of there within the week. I was out of there on Friday, and from there, I woke up on Saturday. Somebody had tagged me in a post that Captain Stoker had made, wanting to feature local bakers. I messaged them. They were interested in hosting some of my pretzels for the weekend, for the coming weeks of January. And that gave me a huge boost. I was fulfilling orders still on a first come, first serve basis via messaging me on Instagram or Facebook or whatnot. And here I go. It was extremely difficult because, like I said, now we're getting into the realm of from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 loaves a day. Now all of a sudden I'm doing my first batch of 45 in a day, and I'm producing 60 loaves a week. At that time, I think it was maybe 50 or 60 pretzels a week. And then on top of it, about 50 to 60 sourdough croissants. And it's amazing to see how stressed and how chaotic in your mind these days are in the early goings. And still, I'm only 3 months into being full time. But what I always told myself is, and I am a follower and practitioner in Buddhism, I knew that there was a way to do this peacefully. And I knew that there was a way for me to wake up on the days that I had a really heavy production day and I knew there was a way to be present, and there was a way to enjoy what I was doing and to not have things be so chaotic. And I want to, I can close on this, but what I've been thinking about recently is, I look back and I reflect on when I was in the office and I needed to be broke to be in the office. And there was a moment maybe 2 weeks ago where I felt as though I needed to be broke again to realize the freedom that I had attained with this venture. It was like suddenly just I could see that every day I wake up, and I always told people that all I want to do all day is listen to Led Zeppelin, wear Hawaiian shirts, and make bread, and that's what I do. And I laugh about it. It's funny. I mean, shoot, I've been wanting to for so long. I've just been wanting to watch baseball while I'm working on my bread, and I got to do that this last week. It was special, and I've always said that I'm pursuing personal freedom and personal truth, and I never knew quite what that meant when I would say that to people. I wouldn't necessarily go around saying that, but I have a couple friends that I've talked to about that kind of stuff, and I didn't know exactly what it meant. but I feel like I know what that means now. And, it's something that I'm going to continue to pursue and grow and be involved with the community. And, you know, that's kind of where I'm at now. So I don't know, if you have any questions, or if I got off topic or didn't, hone in on the pure business aspects of it, I'm sorry. But like I said, there's a lot of factors that have influenced me here. And a lot of it is, below the surface. It's not so much procedural and whatnot, but I can answer any questions like that.
You did a great job. Yeah. Wow. You did exactly what we wanted. And you told your story, Otto. That's great. President
Steve.
Jesse, yeah.
Much appreciated, Otto. Definitely a huge leap for anyone being, just facing the crossroads that you were at, to be able to go into business for yourself. It's a life-changing thing, and we all applaud the work you've put into it. Now, I'm only looking at the chat box window right now. Certainly, a lot of praise, basically echoing what I just said there. We could probably go on for a while longer if we went through all the questions here. I'm just going to focus on a couple of them. Actually, one here from Dr. Betty Lusk, a fellow Rotarian here who works with MPUSD. Great career story. Would love for you to share your journey with our MPUSD career technical education students. Very inspiring. In fact, Otto, I'd be more than happy to connect you two via email and try to get that set up. I think definitely a lot of young people could benefit from hearing your story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Be happy to speak.
And where can we find your product?
Oh, yeah. So that's, so today actually so Wednesday is bread day. And my bread today is at Castle Rock Coffee and Mercantile. It's a small coffee shop here right next to Toro Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
You can find it at the Salad Shop, popular salad bar spot in Salinas. And then the Bearded Bean also carries loaves as well. Now pretzels are today they're at Dust Bowl Brewing Company in Monterey. They will be at the Bearded Bean again on Friday, and then Captain Stoker in Monterey on Saturday.
Very cool stuff. So I think, and actually, if you wouldn't mind maybe emailing that to me as well, we can be sure to include that in the follow-up email to our fellow Rotarians. That way everyone can get a chance to taste some of that delicious bread.
I just put it in the chat as well.
Oh, beautiful. Much appreciated, Steve.
Thank you.
Now, one question about the ovens. Assuming that the power is expensive, is there anything that you found to cut some of the costs there?
Yeah, so power it was a concern, and my rent has gone up, and it was willingly. Like I said, we're good friends. I'm really good friends with the landlords, and I knew, I consulted with them before I started this, and so I've been throwing them some more rent money as I've seen the bills, because I did ask him. I said, hey, can you give me the code or the passwords to the PG&E so I can do some analysis on what I am going to do to be more efficient. But the most efficient aspect of being able to cut costs when it comes to utilities in a bakery that I've found is just being efficient with your time. And that only comes from experience. And it is something like the first bake of 45 loaves that I did, my oven was on for probably about 10 hours. And now it's down to, about 5 or 6. So being able to cut costs in that regard, preparation is huge. Remembering to turn your lights off, managing how long the mixers go. But surprisingly, it really hasn't been too bad. I think once I get to the next level of baking, where you do need aspects of 3-phase power and you're using multiple 250 watt or 250 volt products or machinery, that's when the utilities will start to rise, but all in due time.
Otto, just a quick question. You have, are there bakeries locally that do not do sourdough that maybe you could rent, their space or their ovens for a short period of time, 2 or 3 days a week or whatever the time is you need?
Sure. Yeah, no, David, that's a question. And it's a common one that or at least a common suggestion that people give to me when they hear about my situation. And the tough part is that I've actually had some people kind enough to offer up their ovens and their space and their cold rooms for me. But when it comes to baking, one of the most important aspects about it and coming to efficiency is having a good flow of product. Being able to have your mixer where you want it, being able to have your bench, the work table where you want it. And if I have to go back and forth and judge my hours based on somebody else's schedule, it does kind of come back to, when I've thought about that myself, it comes back to kind of, the personal freedom aspect of it. And I just wanted to be in control of everything. Not because I want to be in control, but just because it's my name on it at the end of the day, and got to do what's best for that.
Thank you.
I think we only have time for one more question. Actually, it's a very poignant one here. Our club is highly motivated by helping children, especially at-risk children. You left a desk job to pursue a passion with your hands. What 3 words describe your inspiration that you would leave to kids of all ages?
Sorry, I'm looking. Can you repeat that? I'm just looking at it. What 3 words
So
describe your
what 3 words do you think would best describe your inspiration to that you would want to leave to kids of all ages?
3 words. That's difficult. I could go on for probably 15 more minutes if I wanted to inspire some more kids, but I would say personal honesty, if we can count that as one word. I know it's not, but not just honesty, but being honest with who you are as a person. I would say courage. I would say, I want to say doubt. It's not that you are going to doubt yourself, but you just need to be aware that doubt is not something to be feared. It's something to be recognized. And it is going to be a big factor into your decision to be, to grow and to be, who you're meant to be.
Well said. Otto, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate you guys having me.
Really appreciate you having you here today and sharing your story with us. One of the things as a Rotary Club, we like to highlight, local businesses and the journeys that brought them here. So thank you again for sharing that with us.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate it, guys.
Fantastic. All right.
And Otto, could you, would you consider giving this talk to other Rotary clubs, like even in Salinas?
Yeah, no, I really enjoy public speaking, and I learned how to public speak I was part of a Toastmasters club there at the Taylor building for quite a while. And this is something that I've wanted to do. So when Steve reached out, I was more than happy to join. So yes, I would be open to sharing.
Hopefully we can help you get that, make that happen.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Otto, anytime you need help with connecting with another Rotary Club, more than happy to help you there.
Thank you, Jesse.
All right, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording function here. Thank you once again, Otto.